Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Today's question is, can I analyze the case of Miya Marcano? Just a reminder, I'm not diagnosing anybody in this video, only speculating about what could be happening in a situation like this. If you enjoyed this video, please like it, subscribe to my channel, and consider supporting me on Patreon. I will put the link to Patreon in the description for this video. First, I'll look at the background of this case, move to the timeline of the crime, then offer my analysis. Miya Marcano was born on April 26, 2002. Her parents divorced when she was 6 years old. As a teenager, Miya became active in cheerleading and modeling. She went to college and studied sports medicine. In 2021, she lived in Orlando and worked in the leasing office of the Arden Villas apartment complex. Miya also lived in one of those apartments. One of the maintenance workers was a 27-year-old man named Armando Caballero. He had a violent criminal history and routinely made unwanted advances on women. On one occasion, when he worked for a different apartment complex, he threw a weight through an apartment window of a woman who rejected him romantically. She had actually agreed to go on a date with him, but he changed the night to that very evening. She then rejected him. This is when he decided to make an unauthorized modification to her apartment. Armando became obsessed with Miya. He would frequently send her text messages, even though she made it clear that she was not interested in him. Before moving to the timeline of the crime, let's hear a word from today's sponsor, PDS Debt. Many people wish there was a better way for paying off debt. PDS Debt has customized 0% interest options to anyone struggling with credit cards, personal loans, collections, or medical bills. With inflation on the rise and gas prices hitting all-time highs, now is the time to get serious about a better plan to pay off debt. If you're making payments every month on debt and the balances aren't going down, this program is for you. PDS Debt rolls all of your payments into one monthly payment with 0% interest. Everyone with over $10,000 or more in debt qualifies, and there is no minimum credit score required. Bad and fair credit accepted. Save thousands in interest and fees. Pay off your debt in a fraction of the time. PDS Debt is offering a free debt analysis just for completing the quick and easy debt assessment at www.pdsdebt.com/grande. That's pdsdebt.com/grande. Take back your financial freedom today by visiting pdsdebt.com/grande. Now moving to the timeline of the crime. On September 24, 2021, a maintenance key fob known to be in the possession of Armando was used to unlock Miya's apartment at 2:14 p.m. At 4:34 p.m., the key fob was once again used to unlock Miya's apartment. At 5 p.m., Miya was seen leaving the leasing office where she had completed her shift. At 5:06 p.m., Miya used her key fob to enter her apartment. Right after this, Armando attacked and killed Miya. He wrapped her hands, feet, and mouth with duct tape. He carried her body through the window and placed it in the trunk of his car. Armando left the apartment complex at 5:52 p.m. At 7:01 p.m., Armando placed a fake maintenance call in order to have a reason to return to the apartment complex. At 7:16 p.m., he used Miya's key fob to swipe the exterior lock to her apartment, but he did not enter. He left the apartment complex 22 minutes later. At about 8:30 p.m., Armando dumped Miya's body about 18 miles away near condominiums. Miya typically had frequent contact with her family members. They noticed that she was missing right away. Her mother called the police at 9:23 p.m. A police officer arrived at Miya's apartment at 10:02 p.m. The front door was locked. The officer looked through the apartment's rear window, but he didn't see anything out of the ordinary. 19 minutes later, the officer was let into the apartment by Miya's roommate, who had been contacted by Miya's family. The officer noticed that Miya's bedroom door was locked. He once again went to the rear window. This time he noticed the rear window was unlocked. The roommate climbed through the window to unlock the bedroom door so the officer could look at it. A small shelf was positioned up against the bedroom door right under the doorknob, so somebody was trying to prevent the door from opening. The police officer noticed a few items in Miya's bedroom. Her necklace was on the floor. There was a spot of dried blood on her pillowcase. There was a box cutter under a rug. The roommate said it did not belong to Miya. Mia's teddy bear was in her closet. She kept this teddy bear with her at all times. She even took it to work. At 1:36 a.m., now on September 25, Miya was officially declared a missing person by the police. By this time, many of Mia's family members were at the apartment with the police. Sometime just after 4 a.m., the police noticed Armando at the apartment complex. They spoke to him as Mia's family members looked on. Armando identified himself as a maintenance worker and asked them if they were looking for Miya. His presence was unusual because he was not on duty. To explain this, he said that a mutual friend told him that Miya was missing. The name of the mutual friend he supplied was not anyone who the family members recognized. The family members were aware that Miya was being harassed by Armando. Considering that he was now at the apartment complex talking about Miya being missing, and his face was swollen, the family members had plenty of reasons to view him as suspicious. He was questioned by the police at the scene and released. They didn't have any convincing evidence that he committed a crime. At 8 a.m., Mia's family members traveled in a car to Armando's apartment. They parked a short distance away and recorded him on a cell phone. They captured him next to his vehicle, where he can be seen with latex gloves. He pulled a blanket out from the car and carried it into his apartment. The family members called the police at 8:17 a.m. Shortly after this, Armando realized that he was being watched. He walked up to the family member's vehicle and made threats. He was clearly angry. He then climbed in his vehicle and left the area. The police arrived at 8:47 a.m. They called Armando and told him to return to the apartment, which he did about 20 minutes later. Armando gave the police permission to search his apartment. They didn't find anything connecting him to a crime. Armando drove away from his apartment at 3 p.m. He would never be seen alive again. At 9:35 p.m., he sent a final text message from his phone. At some point after this, he locked himself in a shed at another apartment complex where he worked. He brought an end to his own life by hanging. The police obtained search warrants and discovered that Armando had entered Mia's apartment. They filed burglary charges against him in an effort to hold him until they could build a murder case. They went to arrest him at his apartment, but of course he wasn't there. On September 27, the police found his body. Mia's blood and hair were found on his belongings. Mia's body was found on October 2, 2021 at 10:45 a.m. She was wearing jeans and a bra, as if she had been interrupted while changing her clothing. The theory is that Armando was hiding in her closet. He waited for her to start getting undressed and then attacked her. Mia's cause of death could not be determined because only her bones remained. Now moving to my analysis. This is one of the many cases where a victim of stalking did everything right and yet was still murdered. Miya repeatedly rejected Armando's advances. He sent her $600 through an app. She tried to return it to him repeatedly, but he kept resending the money, like he wouldn't take no for an answer. She had additional locks on her windows, above and beyond those supplied by the apartment complex. She stayed in frequent contact with her family members. According to her family members, she informed her employer that she was concerned with Armando's behavior. Once the apartment complex was informed about Armando's behavior, they should have taken action. Now, of course, anyone can make an allegation. Management would have to investigate it before taking drastic action. But in the meantime, they could have certainly prevented Armando from having access to Mia's apartment. To be fair, even if these measures were put in place, it wouldn't have necessarily stopped Armando. He appeared to be particularly motivated to commit murder. Which brings me to the next question. What type of stalker was Armando Caballero? Stalker behavior is well represented in the research literature. There are many different typologies for stalkers, like different ways to divide them into categories. When I talk about these categories, I'm going to use examples where a man is the stalker and a woman is the victim, but of course that's not always the case. One popular typology features 5 different types of stalker. Type number 1 is the intimacy stalker. This is when the man has not had a prior relationship with the woman, but he desperately wants to have a relationship. In his mind, the target of his obsession is actually secretly in love with him, but is not able to openly profess her love due to various restrictions, like social class, a current boyfriend, her job, or her fear about being overwhelmed by feelings of passion. Many stalkers of this type are delusional. Celebrity stalkers often fall into this category. John Hinckley Jr., the man who tried to assassinate President Reagan, was this type of stalker. His target was Jodie Foster. He had seen her in the movie Taxi Driver. I have a separate video about Taxi Driver. Type number 2 is the incompetent suitor. This man is just like the intimacy stalker, except he is looking for a casual relationship. There is no fantasy about getting married or anything like that. This type of stalker is socially awkward and can usually be discouraged by being firm. Type number 3 is the rejected stalker. This is when a man cannot accept the end of a romantic relationship and repeatedly communicates that sentiment to the victim. The man simultaneously tries to reconcile and get revenge, not realizing that those two behaviors do not go well together. Some people have suggested that this category could also be called a Kanye West, but that's kind of an insult to most people who would fit into this stalker category. Type number 4 is the resentful stalker. This is when the man intimidates and terrorizes a former lover in order to regain power and control. This is one of the more dangerous types of stalking. It has an association with a variety of tactics, like vandalizing property, trying to get the victim fired from her job, and harassing the victim's friends. The final type, number 5, is the predatory stalker. This is the most dangerous type. This is when the man prepares for an attack in various ways, including using covert surveillance. The stalker's objective is sometimes an assault of a sexual nature. There is some overlap between the stalker types, and a person can be in more than one category at the same time. They can also move from one category to another. Looking at the case of Armando, he did not have a prior romantic relationship with Miya. Therefore, his behavior is not a good fit with the rejected stalker or the resentful stalker. He did not give up, even though Miya repeatedly rejected him. Therefore, incompetent suitor doesn't match either. I think that Armando was probably a predatory stalker, but he also could have been an intimacy stalker. One possibility is that he started out as an intimacy stalker and converted to a predatory stalker. There's not much information about his state of mind, like whether or not he was delusional, so it's difficult to know for certain. Moving to the next question, what mental health and personality factors are at work with stalkers? Here's what we know from research. About half of stalkers have some form of diagnosable mental disorder. Stalkers who pursue strangers or casual acquaintances are more likely to have a mood disorder like depression or bipolar disorder, or a psychotic disorder like schizophrenia. Stalkers who pursue prior romantic interests are more likely to have substance use problems, as well as narcissistic, borderline, or paranoid personality disorders. As far as the risk of homicidal violence, about 2% of stalking cases result in homicide. With all this in mind, what factors are associated with an increased risk of stalking violence? Being a male under the age of 30, having less than a high school education, a general history of antisocial behavior, feeling humiliated by a romantic interest, being angry at a romantic interest, a history of making verbal threats, pursuing multiple targets at the same time, and having a cluster B personality disorder. As I mentioned, in the case of Miya Marcano, she did everything right to avoid stalker violence, yet was still murdered. Most cases are not like this. For most victims, the use of deterrence strategies is successful. This includes cutting off contact with the stalker, enlisting the aid of law enforcement, friends, family, and mental health counselors, training with self-defense weapons and tactics, avoiding a predictable schedule, and documenting communications with stalkers. Many people have noted that it's unfair that a stalking victim would have to use these strategies, like why should the victim be the one who is inconvenienced? There is no question that it is unfair. Stalkers have a tremendous amount of freedom and power, and typically suffer little in the way of consequences. Those are my thoughts in the case of Miya Marcano. Please put any opinions and thoughts in the comment section. They always generate an interesting dialogue. As always, I hope you found my analysis of this topic to be informative. Thanks for watching.